Welcome back. Our Russian President Vladimir Putin says it will be fair for Iran to pump as much oil as it was before international sanctions were imposed on it, but said he did not think the current oil price was fair. Putin said Moscow was nonetheless satisfied with the price of oil, despite that perceived unfairness. Speaking at a news conference after a G20 summit in China, he stressed Russia's friendly relations with oil producer Saudi Arabia.
As for our relations with Saudi Arabia, we have friendly relations, and we have a similar view on cooperation on the world oil market. In my view, as I have already said, Iran had minimal oil extraction under sanctions. I believe it's to be fair for Iran to reach pre-sanctions level of extraction. This request by Iran is not over the top. I will give you a very precise answer. The price should be fair. Now it is not. It could be a bit higher. But taking into consideration that the fact that we planned our budget based on $40 per barrel, it is fine for us. We are satisfied with today's oil price in general.
And in South Africa, the economy expanded by 3.3% in the second quarter of 2016 after shrinking by 1.2% in the 3 months to March. Gross domestic product also expanded by 0.6% on an unadjusted year-on-year basis in the second quarter, compared with 0.1% contraction in the previous 3 months. Economists had expected a quarter-on-quarter GDP expansion of 2.3%, while the economy was seen expanding 0.5% year-on-year. Meanwhile, South Africa's rand strengthened in early trade, extending gains to a fourth consecutive session, and ahead of local GDP data expected to show that the economy avoided recession. And then tens of thousands of cocoa farmers have been kicked out of Mount Peco National Park in an effort to rescue what remains of the fragile rainforest housing dwarf elephants and chimpanzees. But the move has rendered them homeless and destitute, potentially triggering unrest and massively hitting cocoa production, much of which is in illegal forest areas. Ivorian officials say 99% of the park's 34,000 hectares have been destroyed by cocoa farmers, taking advantage of the chaos brought by a decade-long political crisis in the West African nation.
With the years of turmoil over, the government of President Alassane Ouattara is preparing to expel tens of thousands of farmers from parks and reserves in an attempt to save the dwindling forests. Mount Peco, with an illegal population of around 28,000, is the first test of the government's new policy.
I can say that the state has deceived us because they have been promising us things for 3 years now. And now, as of last week, they changed everything. I think that if the state knew we would be living like this, if they had won us back in 2014, then maybe many of us would have left already. But they made us believe they were going to do something for us. And that is why people stayed, hoping to get something. It was at the last minute they told us they couldn't deal with us.
Critics say the move could put a dent in the gross domestic product and risk inflaming tensions left over from years of unrest. But it may also save the most rapidly evaporating forest in Africa. Since independence in 1960, Ivory Coast has built its economy on cash crop agriculture. It contributes roughly 40% of global supply of cocoa. Clearing Mount Peco is considered a pivotal step in the push to end illegal farming in Ivory Coast's 8 national parks, 5 nature reserves, and 231 forest reserves. And so on July 30th, the government ordered the farmers out of Mount Peco.
Since July 30, they have been banned from entering the park, and it is strictly forbidden to harvest anything at all inside the park. That means if we see them inside the park, we will arrest them and charge them with trespassing.
Ivorian authorities have in the past said they'll offer resettlement packages to people living in protected lands. But some residents say they still do not know how much help they'll get, and thousands say they have nowhere to go. In June, a report by Human Rights Watch accused Ivorian conservation agents of using the threat of eviction to extort money from illegal farmers, as well as destroy their belongings and other human rights abuses, allegations that Ivorian authorities deny. The government, however, is taking a hard line on what it considers a law and order issue.
Now, Africa, they say, desperately needs investment for infrastructure alone. The continent needs about $90 billion annually, but the much-needed capital does not come easy on the continent where capital flight and illiquid capital markets make money inaccessible and high interest rates by banks discourage borrowing. However, private equity has so far proven to be an important economic growth catalyst in the continent, and this is expected to continue. Now, let's bring in a sub-Saharan capital investment and business development expert and the founder, Mitaji Nenye Kobe Anda, to talk to us about this. Good afternoon, Kobe.
Hello, good afternoon.
Now, tell me, what is the size of private equity and venture capital business in Africa?
Private equity and venture capital in Africa is, I can't put a figure on it immediately, but it's about 1% of the global amount of private equity and venture capital.
Now, what are the key challenges for private equity and venture capital investors in Africa?
Beep.
Hello, Kobe. Well, we seem to have lost Kobe there. Now, let's look at what's happening in Angola. President José Eduardo dos Santos has fired Finance Minister Armand Manuel 2 months after the government of Africa's biggest oil producer broke off talks with the IMF over emergency funding. In a cabinet reshuffle, Dos Santos also replaced his agriculture minister and dropped the powerful chief of staff in the presidency, who was implicated in a recent land eviction. A statement said Manuel, who was appointed in 2013 and whose term had been due to run to 2017, would be replaced by Capital Markets Commission head. Over the last 2 years, Manuel had presided over an economic slump caused by a sharp drop in oil prices, the sapped dollar inflows, hammered the kwanza, and prompted heavy government borrowing. And Ethiopia's inflation slowed to 5.9% in August from 6% the previous month, thanks to a slower rise in non-food prices. Now, the Central Statistics Agency said non-food inflation was 7.6% in August from 8.3% the previous month. Food inflation rose to 4.4% from 4.1% in July. We will take a short break now, and of course when we come back we'll look at the domestic commodities market, talking about the recent development over the price of petrol. Some say we have to increase, others say no way. We'll find out after this break.